Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of the Willow Cove Crafts podcast, a podcast about knitting and sewing and my other crafty endeavors. My name is Emily, and you can find me on both Ravelry and Instagram as Willow Cove Crafts. Today is Sunday, January 23rd, and I am coming to you from just outside of Madison in Verona, Wisconsin, United States. It has been about a week since I last recorded, and Dan and I have had a lot going on this week. Earlier this week, and I mentioned this last episode, but we had my uncle's funeral. I wanted to give a big thank you to everyone who reached out about that. It was really nice to hear your kind words. So we did that earlier this week. It was really sad, obviously. But I have kind of decided it's like a weird thing to say, or like maybe a weird opinion, but I think I really like funerals. Obviously what they represent is really sad. Losing a loved one is never fun. But yeah, then you have the funeral and like they're really hard, they're really emotional. But yeah, I think it's really special to get to hear people talk about how much they loved someone. I think that's like one of the most beautiful things in the world. So yeah, it's good. In other happier news, a couple other things that happened this week. I'm looking at it right now. I finally got my new couch. So I ordered a couch in July. My previous couch had belonged to my parents. I think it was as old as me. And yeah, I like took the couch when I moved out after college, and I've had that same couch ever since. And finally, this past summer, I was like, I'm gonna bite the bullet and get a new couch. And I ordered a couch in July, and they told me it would be ready in 2 months. And I just got it this week. So 6 months for a couch. Supply chain, what can I say? But it finally arrived. Maybe I'll put a little bit of footage in here. Definitely worth the wait. I'm really happy with it. It's very cozy and it's got a nice little chase lounge, perfect for relaxing and getting some knitting in. What else? It was Dan's birthday this week, so we had a couple things going on. Just him and I went out to dinner this week at this really nice restaurant in Madison. It's newer. It's called the Harvey House. And it was pretty fancy, at least by our standards. But it was really good. We did the whole shebang, got a bottle of wine, appetizers, entrees, desserts. And that was how we celebrated on our own. And then yesterday was Saturday. We have another friend whose birthday is also in the past week or two. So him and his girlfriend came over and we did kind of like a cooking day. I did not cook at all. I am not a big chef. But Dan and Raj, our friend, and Cass, his girlfriend, our other friend, all really love to cook. And so they made a really nice dinner and all sorts of appetizers, and I just got to kind of enjoy it. But yeah, that was really fun. It was kind of an all-day thing. We hung out with them, played some games, had a lot to eat, and yeah, it was a great way to spend our Saturday. The other big thing that happened this week is I had a pretty important doctor's appointment. So I am going to give you all a little bit of a health update. And I've decided I'm gonna be a bit explicit with what's happening with me. So, you know, it's just hard to be like cryptic about things. The reason I've done that is because I know some people can get a bit squeamish when it comes to medical things. So if you are that type of person, or you just like don't care, you don't, want to hear about medical or surgical type things, I would skip ahead maybe 5 minutes while I talk about that. So if you are new here, I go into a lot more detail about this in episodes 15 and 17, I believe. So if you're curious and want the full story, you can definitely go back and watch those. But long story short, the week of Thanksgiving, about 2 months ago, I had some pretty concerning symptoms, and I went into the doctor and was diagnosed with multiple pulmonary embolisms, which are blood clots in your lungs. I had embolisms in all 5 lobes of my lungs, at least one in every lobe. So they didn't give me an exact number, but at least 5 small little blood clots throughout my lungs, which is really serious. And then, from there, we kind of worked backwards to figure out if I had some sort of underlying condition that contributed to that clotting that I experienced. From there, one of my big symptoms was that my arm kind of swelled up. It was very discolored and painful. So I had an ultrasound on my left arm, and we found that I had additional clotting up in my shoulder area here, like kind of on my chest. And I was told at that time that clotting in that area is typically indicative of some sort of anatomical structural problem in that area. And so that was what my doctor's appointment this week was about, was just to confirm if I had, some sort of issue up there. And I do. I have a condition called thoracic outlet syndrome. And what that basically means is, and you can go look up anatomy pictures if you're more of a visual person. I found that really helpful in understanding what was going on with me. But basically, you've got your collarbone, and you've got your first rib, and then you've got what's called your scalene muscle. And those 3 structures kind of form a little bit of a triangular space up here in your shoulder chest area. There is a nerve, your brachial plexus, a vein, your subclavian vein, and an artery, your subclavian artery, that passes through that triangular space. And in certain people, that space, it could be like this, just the way you're born and your natural bone structure. Over time, with repetitive motion, typically a lot of overhead motion, that space can get compressed. Previous injury is also a risk factor. I broke this collarbone when I was a kid, so that definitely could have come into play. But essentially, that triangular space gets a little bit compressed, or a lot compressed. And, especially when it comes to the vein getting compressed, which is what happened to me, it gets compressed, your blood kind of pools, and then you can get blood clots up in that vein. Pieces of that blood clot can break off, travel to your lungs. That's what a pulmonary embolism is. So yeah, we kind of found all of this out, working backwards. I had the most serious side effect that could possibly come from this condition. And then from there, that's how we figured out that I have it. And so this week, what they did was they did a bunch of tests to check blood flow to my arms. And it was really interesting. So they put these sensors on my fingers, and when my arms were relaxed in my lap, those sensors will check, your blood kind of pulsing, down your arm and into your fingers. And so you kind of expect to see it pop up with your heartbeat. And so when my arms were relaxed in my lap, everything was normal. We just saw this doo-doo. But then when I put my arm up like this position is particularly bad for me. But when I put my arm up like this, that reading just flatlined, which indicates that in certain positions, my arms are not getting any blood flow. And you don't really notice in the moment because like how often do you just sit with your arm like this? But over time, or like if you fall asleep in that position, what have you, having that, you know, compression is obviously can be very serious. So then I met with a surgeon because for this condition, the kind of standard for treatment is to have surgery. So I will be, it's not scheduled yet. I'll probably get it scheduled early next week. But my surgeon wants to get it done pretty quickly. He said he's hoping to get me in within the next month. So like the next 4 weeks. And what that surgery entails is they will be removing my first rib and the muscles, just to kind of, you know, again, it's this triangular space to, you know, remove that triangle essentially and to give the vein and artery room to expand a little bit more. I have been told that, you know, that's what they told me. I was a little grossed out and like obviously concerned that they're removing a whole bone from my body. But I have been assured that that bone and the muscle are pretty minor structures in terms of functionality, and that over time I should not notice any sort of major difference between my two sides. Obviously surgery is going to be pretty painful. I had knee surgery in college and I remember the first few days were pretty rough. And so I'm just trying to imagine what that type of pain is going to be like, kind of centered over my shoulder. I've heard the biggest thing that people have after the surgery is difficulty breathing because you're, you know, basically having chest surgery. I'll be in the hospital for a couple of nights afterwards, and then it's a couple, I was told I would be taking 2 to 3 weeks off of work. And then, you know, first few days are a little rough, but recovery actually seems fairly quick. Obviously to get back to 100%, that's going to take months and months, but in terms of like pain and kind of getting back to your normal routine, recovery actually only takes a couple weeks. So I'm hopeful that we're just gonna like get this over with and I can move on. My surgeon also told me that afterwards there's really no restriction on what I can do. It's just more of a question of what my pain tolerance will allow. So we talked a bit about knitting and how much I like it, and he said, you know, as soon as you feel up to it, you can go right ahead and start knitting. You don't have to worry about stabilizing your arm or your shoulder too much. So I'm pretty motivated to knit, so we will see. Maybe I will only be taking a couple days off of crafting. Maybe I'm being really optimistic, I don't know. But yes, that will be happening soon. We're moving pretty quickly. So yeah, there might be a week or two hiatus from the podcast while I am recovering, but I am really hopeful that recovery is quick and smooth and I will be right back at it soon. Yes, like I said, I've had surgery before. I still get very nervous. Anesthesia really freaks me out. Just the idea of like being put to sleep and not having any control over anything is like one of my big fears in life. I've done it before. I know exactly what to expect and I'm still kind of panicking. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to just like having this done. The pain of surgery, like while I'm not looking forward to it, doesn't scare me as much as actually getting put to sleep. I don't know if any of you out there can relate. Anesthesia is an amazing thing. However, I am terrified of it. But yeah, that's my health update. And hopefully, you know, in a couple months, this will all be behind me. I will be back to a normal baseline risk of blood clots, pulmonary embolisms, and I can get back to normal life. All right, let's get on to some knitting content. I have a lot to show you this week. I've worked on a lot of things. Yes, so let's start with what I'm wearing and finished objects. They are one in the same this week. Some of you may have noticed that I am wearing my finished Foyka sweater. I'm going to insert some video here so that you can see it in all of its glory, since my body's kind of getting cut off on this camera. But I will put that in here, and then I will talk about some of the specifics. So one last time, again, this is the Foyka sweater by Linka Neumann. It comes out of this book called Wilderness Knits. Again, there's how you spell the designer's name. And I recommend this book. There's a lot of really great patterns in here if you really like thick, cozy colorwork sweaters, such as this one. There's definitely a couple more patterns in here that I plan to make someday. But yes, I made the largest size, I believe, goes to from a small to an XL. It's quite oversized on me. That's what I was hoping for. I wanted just something really big and warm and cozy, not super fitted. And I am obsessed with it. I told Dan that like we really need to go on a ski vacation now because I have the outfit. I do not ski at all. I'm terrified of it, but I will sit in a chalet and knit with a cup of hot cocoa in my new sweater. Yes, the yarn I used is the yarn that is called for in the pattern. It is the Alafosslopi, which is a 100% Icelandic wool in a bulky weight. My main color is this tan. I believe I used 7 balls, and I used a full 7 balls, and I think I actually knit the turtleneck maybe a centimeter shorter than it called for, just because I didn't want to break into my 8th ball. But this is color 9972. And then my 2 contrasting colors obviously are this brown and this red. And I forget which one is which, but those are colors 0085 and 9962. Yes, I'm very happy with how it turned out. It knit up super quickly. I think from start to finish, I knit this sweater in about 3 weeks, which is a personal record for me. It is a bulky weight, so it obviously went very quickly. However, I do think that the reason I knit this so fast was that I was almost completely monogamous on this sweater. And yeah, it just grew super quickly, and that really made me want to continue with this monogamous knitting bit and just like knock out projects. I love that idea. So yeah, for now, I'm going to continue working on 1 or 2 things at a time, because seeing that kind of progress is really satisfying. I highly recommend giving it a try if you never have. Yes. I don't know if I have anything else to say on this. It's super warm. I have heard people say that the Alafosslopi is maybe too warm sometimes for inside wear. That has not been my experience. I've worn this a couple times since I finished it early last week, and I've been wearing it inside. It is very warm, but I'm not overheating in it. So yeah, I think, you know, even though it's meant as an outdoor sweater yarn. I have been wearing it indoors and I have been completely fine. It is pretty itchy. I have a pretty high tolerance for itchy yarns though, so you know, if I wear a long sleeve shirt underneath it, I don't really feel any sort of prickle. But again, I'm maybe not the person to ask. I can put up with pretty rustic wools and not have any problems. But yeah, I love cuffing the sleeve just to like roll them up a little bit. And yeah, I'm really proud of it. I am really happy with how it turned out. After finishing my Foyka sweater this week, I put some work into my granny stripe blanket. So I've mentioned before that kind of as a long-term project for the year, I started a scrappy granny stripe blanket, and my plan, because I'm super analytical and need like a very discrete plan in place, but once I finish some sort of knitting project or sewing project, really anything, my plan is to put 10 stripes into my blanket. And so I finished my Foyka sweater, and then I spent a couple days bringing my total number of stripes on my blanket up to 20. So let me show you. Let me find, I have a marker on here to show where I was last time. I didn't crochet 10 stripes this time because I was up to like 13 or 14. So I just kind of rounded up to the next 10, and that's where I decided to stop this time around. So the last time I showed my blanket, I was here on this, I would call that an ochre color. And then this week again, after I finished my sweater, I added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more stripes. So yes. And yeah, I've just got this like little tail here ready for the next mini. As far as yarns are concerned with this blanket, I purchased a lot of minis. I've showed those on a previous episode. I will try and remember, I can't think of them off the top of my head. I bought minis from a bunch of different shops. Some of my favorite independent yarn dyers, and then also just some shops I found on Etsy that had minis in colors that I really liked. I will go back and look through some of my email receipts and see if I can put a list of shops I bought minis from in the description below the video in case you are interested in purchasing some minis for your own scrappy projects. I am trying to use all stock yarns on this blanket. I have debated including some single ply yarns, but I decided not to, just for durability and washing purposes. All of these yarns are some sort of superwash nylon mix, and I thought that was a good choice for a blanket so that I could wash this a little bit easier in the future if it ever needs it. But yeah, I've got maybe 160 total minis and 20 in. So yes. Another thing, some people have been asking me how my striping sequence is working. There is no particular sequence. I am going off of weight. So all of my minis are between 20 and 25 grams. And I am just crocheting until I'm completely out of that color. So you'll notice, I mean, here's a good example. I'm at the end of this mini, this like light pink one, and I'm right in the middle of the row. And so I will just join my next one and continue going. That means my stripes are thicker in some spots. So like at the edges in particular, I often have like clusters of four 4 rows of a single color. But I really like that. I think it lends itself to the scrappy nature of the blanket. I think it makes it really fun. So yes, I will be putting this aside for a little bit while I work on my next project, which I will show you coming up here. I forgot to mention, for my crochet blanket, I am following the instructions by Attic24. She has a really great blog, and she has a free kind of, it's not really a pattern, I would call it more of a recipe for a granny stripe blanket. So yes, I did want to call that out. So I finished my sweater, I finished my 10 blanket stripes, and so then it was time to start a new project this week. So I actually cast this on just last night. And again, I'm trying to like think about things that like I need in my knitted wardrobe. And one thing that is glaringly missing from my stack of finished knitting things is a pair of mittens. I've knit a couple hand warmers, but I've only knit one proper pair of mittens in my entire knitting career. And it was when I was a brand new baby knitter, and I got some pretty cheap acrylic yarn from a big box store, and I decided to knit a pair of mittens with it. And I knew nothing about gauge, and so my pair of mittens, again, they were out of acrylic yarn, which doesn't, in my opinion, do much in terms of warmth, and they were knit at a really loose gauge. So yeah, I knit this pair of mittens, and then I was wearing them, and I was like, these are not warm at all. Hand knit mittens must not be warm. And that was like an assumption I made right at the beginning. Now I know a lot better that if you use a tighter gauge and wool, you're gonna have a pretty warm pair of mittens. But yeah, since then I have never knit a pair of mittens. Hold on, my mom is calling me. I will call her back. So anyways, I have decided to make the Selbu Mittens by Ellie of Skeindeer Knits. This was a pretty popular pattern a couple years ago, and I have really liked it ever since. And yeah, I cast them on last night and got pretty far through. Mittens are a pretty quick project, but here is where I am at. So again, I am knitting the Selbu Mittens by Ellie of Skeindeer. They are a pretty traditional Norwegian mitten pattern. And so kind of the way it works is the cuff is this, they look like flowers to me, this kind of floral colorwork pattern, and then the body of the mitten, for lack of a better word, is going to have that kind of traditional Norwegian snowflake pattern. This is the left mitten. I just barely started the thumb gusset here. So yeah, that pretty much establishes this as the left mitten. And yes, I think they look pretty great. The yarn I am using, it's a DK weight pattern, and I am using the Rauma 3-ply Strikkegarn. That's Rauma's main DK weight yarn. And the colors I am using, these are just numbered. So the white, I think it's actually listed as cream on the website, but the cream color is color 101. And then this dark gray is 105. And here are my 2 bowls. What else to say? The way that this pattern is written is there's a couple different sizes, and the way you achieve size is with gauge. So the knitting of the pattern is exactly the same number of stitches, same number of rows. You just adjust your needle to get a gauge that you like and that fits your hand. I am using a size 7, and for no other reason than it was just a guess. I, just kind of took a shot in the dark and started knitting with the size 7, and I think it looks pretty good so far. It's fitting my wrist nicely. It seems like it will fit my hand nicely once I get up a little further. And the fabric is pretty good. It does feel a little loose. However, I do think that this will probably puff up a bit when it is blocked, and kind of fill in some of those spaces. I don't know if you can see, but holding this up to the window, I can see light through the 2 layers. So yeah, I'm hoping this yarn will puff up a bit when it blocks and things will kind of even out a bit, and it will make a pretty nice fabric when it is done. But yeah, those are my Selbu mittens, and I am hoping to have these done pretty quickly. Again, this was just a few hours of knitting, so you can imagine that the rest of them will hopefully go pretty fast. And yeah, if I finish these this week, which seems like it could be possible, I will be right back to knitting on my granny stripe blanket to put about 10 more rows in on that. My last work in progress this week was my Illuminate sweater. I've been doing a lot of collar work. The blanket's very big and bulky, and so I needed something to use as a bit of a side project for when I'm out and about or at work and need something really simple to work on. So I've kind of had the Illuminate going on the last couple episodes as my side project. And this week, I haven't done a ton on it. Again, just kind of working on it here and there when I can't work on my main projects. But I did manage to get a bit of work done on the bottom band. So last episode, I was a few rows into the hem, and since then I have almost completed the hem. I think I have 1 or 2 centimeters left before I bind off. So let me move this. I really love how this hem is turning out. I feel like we've gotten all of the major colors of my Spincycle yarn that I am using. It does a really nice fade. So yeah, this week while I work on my mittens, again, they're color work. I have to really focus on them to make sure I'm doing it right. So I will continue to work on this week while I am in situations that do not lend themselves to 100% focus on my project. So the yarn I am using, I will go through really quick. I've gone through this 100 times, it feels like at this point. But I am using Spincycle, dyed in the wool, in the rusted rainbow colorway. This is a sport weight yarn, and it is 100% superwash American wool. And we're blowing out a little bit, but Spincycle's got a really cute label, I think. And then my contrast color is the Isager Silk Mohair in the rose colorway. This is a 75% kid mohair, 25% silk. It is a lace weight, and you hold it double as your contrast color for this sweater. And together you get this really fun, color shifty, textured, halo-y, floofy goodness. But yes, almost done with the body of the sweater, and then I will pick up for the sleeves. So I do think once I finish my mittens and then do my 10 stripes on my granny stripe blanket, this will become my main project, and I will do a little sprint at the end to finish up this sweater. So that'll be my plans for the next couple weeks. And maybe I can knock all of that out before I go into the hospital. We shall see. Yes. And I think that is everything for me today. I had a lot of works in progress to show you. Still mostly monogamous knitting. You're going to hear me say that a lot, but in a very, there's a lot of things happening this week. Lots of finishing of items or hitting certain milestones. So it has been an exciting week in my knitting. But yeah, I will plan on talking to you again next week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing. I really appreciate, as always, interacting and hearing from you all. So yep, I will plan on talking to you again next week. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I hope that you get lots of knitting in. Bye, everyone.